on my daughter's 35th birthday. She slapped me across the face in front of 200 guests. She screamed, her voice cracking with a disgust I didn't even recognize. My dad's gift is trash. It's worthless. Then, she shoved me toward the door as if I were a stranger, a trespasser who had come to dirty up her palace. I didn't say a word. The silence knotted in my throat. I simply turned around and left the place I once called home. A few hours later, while I was wandering through the dark streets, feeling like my life had come to an end, a luxury car pulled up beside me. A powerful man stepped out, walked over, grabbed my hand firmly, and said, "Let me help you." Lawrence. My daughter thought she had broken me into a million pieces. She had absolutely no idea that in just 3 weeks, her entire world was going to come crashing down. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you're here, sitting with me to share the warmth of this story. Before we dive into the depths of this tale, do me a favor. Leave a comment down below and tell me how you found this corner of the internet. Were you browsing the YouTube homepage? Or did a friend whisper that you just had to hear this? Every word you leave helps me know you better. And a quick disclaimer for those listening. Although this narrative has the colors and shadows of a story woven for the soul, any resemblance to real people or places is purely coincidental. What truly matters is the fire you take away in your heart when it's over. The valet attendant looked at my beat-up 2008 Honda Civic with the exact same pity you'd give a stray dog looking for shelter at a country club. Behind me, the Mercedes, BMWs, and Teslas were waiting their turn in the circular driveway of my daughter's mansion. High up in the Beverly Hills, I handed the keys to the kid and tried to ignore how his expression shifted from professional courtesy to pure compassion. I pressed the gift box against my chest. It was wrapped in lavender paper, the exact shade my late wife loved, tied with a white satin ribbon that I had knotted myself that morning. After 3 failed attempts, my hands were shaking. She's going to love it. I kept repeating it to myself like a prayer. I had saved up for 6 solid months. The mansion loomed before me like an illusion pulled straight from an architectural magazine. Spanish, colonial style. Clay roof tiles, still holding the heat of the September sun. Bougainvillea, spilling like waterfalls of blood over the high stucco walls. Low. 000 square feet of success that I had helped build, paying for her college tuition back when she still called me Dad without that edge of ice in her voice. Hundreds of string lights crisscrossed the courtyard, forming geometric patterns in the air. In the center, a 3-tiered fountain murmured its water song. Surrounded by high-top tables draped in cream-colored linens, beyond the crowd, the silhouette of the Santa Monica Mountains stood massive against a sky painted in pink and gold. 200 guests, wrapped in designer suits, held glasses of champagne, laughing at jokes I couldn't quite hear. I spotted her immediately. Audrey was near the entrance, welcoming the new arrivals with a rehearsed charm, polished to a shine, 35 years old. And she was already a VP of marketing. Her emerald green dress probably cost more than I spent on groceries in 3 months. The diamonds in her ears caught the light. Her makeup didn't have a single flaw. She was beautiful. She was my daughter, and when she saw me, her smile froze for exactly 1 second before rearranging itself into a polite, distant grimace. Dad, you came. No hug, no warmth, just those 2 words, delivered with the same coldness you'd use to accept a mail package. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Sweetheart, I told her, you look beautiful. Thanks. She immediately pivoted toward the couple walking in behind me, both sporting matching Rolex watches, and by sheer magic, her voice transformed into something alive and genuine. David. Sarah, I'm so glad you could make it. I walked past her and stepped into the courtyard. The corporate elite. High society. Wealthy friends. Colleagues. I recognized maybe 3 people. I found a corner near the fountain and just stood there, clutching my gift box like a life preserver in the middle of a shipwreck. My grey suit, the same one I wore to my wife's funeral 8 years ago, hung loose on me. I had lost a lot of weight since then. Lawrence. I knew that voice. It was Maggie, my neighbor of 20 years. The only person in this entire sea of people I actually knew. Maggie. Hi. A sigh of relief washed over my body. How are you holding up? She asked. Her eyes were kind, but they carried a worry I couldn't quite read. I'm fine. Just really proud of Audrey. She squeezed my arm tenderly and then faded back into the crowd. An hour passed. Then another. I watched Audrey work the room like a politician on the campaign trail. Confident, radiant, idolized. She laughed, hugged friends, posed for photos, clinked glasses, and I just kept standing in my corner, wrapped in my 20-year-old suit, wondering why. At my age, I still felt like I was asking permission to exist in her world. The music cut off suddenly, around 9:30 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, the birthday girl wants to say a few words. Audrey walked to the center, stepping under a spotlight. Thank you all for being here tonight. I am so lucky to be surrounded by such incredible people. But first, let's see what surprises you brought me. A sharp-looking man handed her a massive silver box. From inside, she pulled out a caramel leather Hermes bag. Oh my God. David, you shouldn't have. She hugged him. The crowd cheered wildly. Phones went up like fireflies to capture the moment. Then, a woman named Chloe handed her a certificate for a luxury spa retreat, worth about $3. Wu-bai. Next, a basket with vintage champagne bottles. More applause. More photos. Finally, Audrey's eyes found me in the shadows. And last, but certainly not least, Dad, come here. 200 pairs of eyes locked onto me. I walked to the front, my old shoes echoing against the Spanish tiles. I handed her the lavender box. She unwrapped it slowly. Inside, resting on a velvet bed, was a Cartier Tank Française watch. Stainless steel, white dial, blue hands, leather strap. The exact same damn watch her mother had pointed at in a store window 12 years ago. Sighing, someday, Audrey would love to have one of these. I had saved for 6 months to buy it. Audrey stared at the watch for 3 eternal seconds. Then, she looked up at me. Her eyes were blocks of ice. A used watch. Dad. The entire courtyard went dead silent. The silence got so heavy it was hard to breathe. This is what 6 months of your pension bought. This is old junk. Useless trash. I can't even wear this with my clothes. Muffled gasps rippled through the crowd. Audrey. It's the one your mother said you liked. My voice was shaking like a dry leaf. A Cartier Tank. Right. As if I haven't told you I wanted a Santos. Not a tank. You never listen. And besides, it's used. What? Did you get this from a pawn shop downtown? No. Sweetheart. It's new. The certificate is right there. 6 months. And this is the best you could do. Her hand flew through the air before my brain could process the movement. The slap cracked across the courtyard like a gunshot. My head snapped violently to the left. The pain burned my cheek like fire. I stumbled backward, being 64 and having weak legs. I reached out on instinct to grab one of the cocktail tables. I knocked over a champagne flute. The glass shattered. A sharp, fierce pain pierced my palm. A shard of glass had embedded itself right near my thumb. I hit the tile floor hard. The gift box rolled next to me. The watch fell to the ground. 200 people froze. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. The only sound in the world was the fountain, still murmuring its water song. Then Maggie shoved her way through the crowd. "Audrey, what the hell is wrong with you?" Audrey didn't even blink. "Stay out of family business." "Margaret." Maggie dropped to her knees beside me, pressing a linen napkin against my bleeding hand. The white fabric stained a dark red almost instantly. "Lawrence." "No." She whispered to me. "Lawrence, look at me." Behind my back, Audrey's voice rang out. Bright. Plastic. Fake. "Let's keep the party going. Please, sorry for the drama." The band started playing again. Conversations revved up like cold engines. Somebody let out a loud laugh. Maggie kept pressing on my wound. She leaned in, her voice barely a breath against my ear. "Lawrence, this isn't the first time, is it?" I didn't answer, but when I finally dared to look her in the eyes, I knew she was seeing everything I had spent the last 18 months trying to hide. In my 64 years, I had only been hit twice, once in a bar fight when I was 23, and once in a car crash at 40, when the airbag broke my nose. But never, ever had I been hit by someone I raised, someone I loved more than my own life. That kind of pain doesn't stay in the flesh. It lodges somewhere, much deeper, in the roots of your soul. The Cartier box was still there, abandoned on the gift table, lid open. She hadn't even bothered to close it. I would learn later that the slap had nothing to do with the watch. It had to do with something I had done 2 weeks earlier, something I had never, in 35 years of being her father, dared to do. I had told her no, but in that moment, sitting on the tile floor with Maggie kneeling beside me, all I felt was the burning throb in my hand and the crushing weight of 200 pairs of eyes glued to my shame. Most of them, the cowards, looked away. Maggie helped me to my feet. My legs were trembling as if I had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. The napkin wrapped around my hand was soaked in blood. She put my arm over her shoulders, and when she turned to glare at Audrey, her voice had enough edge to cut glass. "He is your father." Audrey didn't even look at her. She was standing by the fountain with a fresh glass in her hand, her chin tilted up in pure defiance. "He humiliated me on my birthday." In front of my guests, a woman, Chloe, walked up and whispered something in her ear. Audrey's expression faltered for a fraction of a second. Doubt. Maybe. But then she shook her head and turned back to the crowd. "Everyone, keep enjoying yourselves. Sorry for the drama." The word drama hit me like spit, as if I had been the crazy one causing a scene. 3 couples near the exit exchanged glances. I watched them set their glasses on a table and slip out into the street without saying goodbye. No confrontations. No question. Just a silent retreat into the night. But the rest stayed. 6 or 7 business partners shifted uncomfortably from foot to foot. But they didn't leave. I understood perfectly. Audrey was a VP. She had connections. Influence. The kind of power that makes or breaks a career in this city. A group from Audrey's church was huddled near the bar, whispering, scandalized. Yes, but not enough to put their hands in the fire. For me, the rest, about 180 souls, just stood there, stunned, waiting for someone else to be the first to do something. Nobody did. The DJ gave the band a cue. The music cranked up, timid at first, then deafening. The waiters started circulating with their silver trays again. The party rolled on, swallowing me up. harassing me. As if I had never set foot there, Maggie tightened her grip on my arm. "Let's go. I'm getting you out of here right now." She guided me through the sea of people toward the exit. People parted, like we had the plague. But nobody dared look me in the eye. I heard the vibration of a cell phone. A text message, sending. I could imagine the words on the screen times. "You will not believe the circus that just happened at Audrey's party." By the time we reached the valet stand, my hand was throbbing to the rhythm of my heartbeat. The kid brought my Civic around fast, avoiding looking at my face, avoiding looking at my blood-soaked hand under Maggie's furious gaze. He opened the driver's side door for me. I slumped into the seat. The dome light illuminated the empty passenger seat. I had forgotten the Cartier box. 6 months of savings. Nearly $4. Woo-bye. Left on a table like it was trash. Maggie leaned through the window. "Lawrence, I'm calling an ambulance. Your hand." "I'm fine. I just need to go home. This isn't right." "Lawrence, what she did to you, that's not just family business. It's assault. And I saw everything." I finally looked at her. Maggie, 55 years old, living 2 doors down for 2 decades. The woman who brought me casseroles and baked goods when my wife died. The closest thing I had to family. Besides the daughter who had just hit me in front of 200 people. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely a thread, "for being there. Call me tomorrow. Promise me." I nodded. I knew I wouldn't call her. I knew it even then. But she didn't. I put it in drive and pulled out onto the street. In the rearview mirror, I watched the mansion get smaller and smaller. The music and the laughter floated into the starry night. The party was still going. I took Mulholland Drive. The road stretched out dark and empty ahead of me, winding through the curves of the hills. The streetlights cast long shadows on the asphalt. The temperature had dropped, and the air smelled like dry earth and mountain night. My right hand gripped the steering wheel. My left, wrapped in Maggie's napkin, rested on my lap. Every heartbeat was a hammer strike of pain in my palm. I wasn't driving home to my small house in the valley. I wasn't driving to a hospital. I was just driving, aimless, without a plan. Just the road, the darkness, and the question drilling into my skull that I couldn't answer times. Where do you go when the person who is supposed to love you treats you like a piece of garbage? I glanced at the empty passenger seat. The Cartier box was still at the party. Audrey hadn't even kept it. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was useless junk. Maybe I was useless. 2. A red light. I hit the brakes, looked down at my bandaged hand. Then I looked up at the rearview mirror. For the first time since the slap, I truly saw myself, 64 years old, grey, thinning hair, tired eyes, and on my left cheek, a purple bruise was already forming, the perfect mark of Audrey's hand. And then I cried. It wasn't screaming. It wasn't dramatic sobbing. It was a silent weeping. The way old things break when nobody is looking. Tears of shame. For being naive enough to think she would like the gift. For thinking tonight would be different. For spending 6 months scraping together money I barely had. All for a daughter who looked at me like I was a plague for the first time in 8 years. Since the day I buried my wife, I let myself break, crumbling in silence inside a beat-up Civic at a red light in the middle of nowhere. The light turned green. I wiped my face with my good hand and kept driving. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't go back to that party. I couldn't go back to being the man I was before tonight. I couldn't keep pretending things were okay between us. She really doesn't love me. The thought settled in my chest like a granite tombstone. I kept driving, hand throbbing, face wet with tears I had held back for 8 years. When I noticed the headlights in the rearview mirror, a large, dark, luxury car was pacing me. At first, I didn't think much of it. The road wasn't totally deserted, but then it got closer and closer, until I could make out the gleam of the chrome in the mirror, the unmistakable silhouette of a luxury monster. A Rolls-Royce was tailing me, and I felt something inside me shift from shame to pure terror. My first thought was a carjacking. You hear those stories on the news. They follow you out of a rich neighborhood, wait until you're alone in the dark, and take everything you have. My second thought was much darker. I didn't care anymore. If someone wanted my old Civic and the $40 I had in my wallet, they could have it. Carter Sterling was supposed to be in London. Audrey had told me that 3 weeks ago. A massive business trip. A very important client. He wasn't coming back until next month, but there he was, matching a multi-million-dollar car right next to mine on a dark California canyon road. The Rolls-Royce accelerated, past me, and then swerved sharply into a dirt pull-off up ahead. One of those scenic overlooks that empty out as soon as the sun goes down. The hazard lights flashed. Red. Amber. Red. Amber. My foot hesitated over the gas pedal. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap. But another SUV, a dark grey Audi, was pulling up right behind me. I was boxed in. The wound in my hand throbbed furiously. I could try to run, throw it in reverse, and floor it. But my body felt too heavy. I was tired, old, and defeated. I slowed down, pulled onto the dirt shoulder, and left the engine running. The driver's door of the Rolls-Royce opened. A tall man stepped out, pushing 40, wearing a dark overcoat. He walked quickly toward my car, both hands raised, showing his palms. Lawrence, please don't drive away. It's me. I knew that voice. He jogged the last few feet to my window, opened my door, and crouched down to eye level. His face was flushed, his breathing heavy, and his eyes wide with worry. Lawrence, are you okay? Your hand. Let me see. I pulled my hand back to my chest. Carter, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in London. I flew back tonight. As soon as I found out, as soon as I heard what Audrey did at the party, what she did. How could you see it? Because I've had people watching her for months. He grabbed the door frame. Please, step out of the car. Come with me. I'm going to explain everything. Behind him, 2 more figures emerged from the shadows. A woman stepped out of the Rolls-Royce, in her 50s, wearing a charcoal grey tailored suit and carrying a leather briefcase, and a man stepped out of the Audi SUV, in his 40s, wearing jeans and a leather jacket, with a camera slung over his shoulder. Carter pointed to them. Lawrence, this is Eleanor Vance. She's an attorney, one of the best in the state. And this is Marcus Cole, private investigator. I just stared at them, paralyzed. I don't understand any of this. The lawyer spoke. Her voice was calm, like still water. Lawrence, we know you're very confused, but right now, you are not safe. Physically, you need a doctor. Urgently. Legally, you need a shield. And emotionally, you need to know what your daughter has been planning in the shadows. The word times, planning times, hit me like a bucket of ice water. What are you talking about? The PI, Marcus, adjusted his camera. Lawrence, I need to show you something. He pulled an iPad out of his bag and turned the screen toward me. The video started playing. I recognized the angle immediately. It was filmed through the gaps in the wall of Audrey's mansion, a telephoto lens, a clear, crisp view of the gift table, the fountain, the guests, a perfect view of me. The video showed me handing Audrey the Cartier box. It showed her opening it. 3 seconds of lethal silence. And then her face twisting into a mask of disgust. Her voice came through the tablet speakers. A used watch. Dad, this is old junk. Useless trash. Then, the slap. The sound was sharp and cruel. My head snapping from the impact. Me stumbling backward. The glass shattering. My fall. 200 people turning into statues of salt. Maggie running to help me. The video ended. I lost my voice, seeing it from the outside. As a spectator. Made it real in a way my mind still refused to process. You filmed that, I asked. In a barely audible whisper, the PI nodded. I've been running surveillance on your daughter's house for 6 weeks. Tonight, I witnessed a physical assault. This video is criminal evidence. Eleanor, the lawyer, stepped forward. Lawrence, we have been investigating your daughter for 4 months. Investigating? For what? Carter's voice tightened. Fraude. Financière exploitation. Conspiracy. And tonight? Assault. No. That can't be. She's my daughter. I know. Carter's voice softened, heavy with deep sorrow. But Lawrence, Audrey has spent months planning to steal everything you have. Your retirement fund, your house, your pension, your independence. She's been weaving this for months. We have the proof. And tonight, she crossed a line of no return. I looked him in the eyes. Carter Sterling, the powerful man who had married my daughter 7 years ago. Why are you telling me all this? Audrey is your wife. Carter took a step toward me. His face showed an open wound. Because you have been more of a father to me than my own ever was. Because what Audrey is doing is monstrous. And because I am not going to sit on my hands and watch her destroy the only person in the world who loved her, asking for nothing in return. The words hung in the cold air. The sounds of the canyon filled the silence. The chirping of crickets. The distant howl of a coyote. The wind combing through the dry brush. Come with us. Let us help you. I looked around. I looked at my old Civic. I looked at my bloody hand. I looked at Carter's face, where there wasn't a shadow of a lie, and at Eleanor and Marcus, waiting with absolute respect. I had spent 8 years carrying the weight of the world alone since my wife closed her eyes. 8 years telling myself in the mirror that I was fine, that asking for help was for cowards. Maybe it was time to let someone catch me. Where are we going? Relief flooded Carter's face. To a safe place. I promise I'll explain everything there. I turned off the engine, opened the door, and stepped out on shaking legs. I looked at my car one last time. 16 years old. Scratched paint. It was all I had left in the world. The PI stepped up. I'll have a tow truck. Take your car to a secure lockup facility. Case. Please. I dropped them into his hand, handing over control. Choosing to trust, Carter opened the back door of the Rolls-Royce. I had never been inside a car like that in my life. Leather seats that smelled brand new. Polished wood. A tomb-like silence inside. He slid in. The lawyer sat on one side, Carter on the other. The door closed with a heavy, muffled thud. The PI walked to his SUV. Both vehicles pulled onto the road, driving deep into the night. For the first time since my wife died, I wasn't alone in the dark, but I had no idea where they were taking me, or the horrors Carter was about to reveal. I didn't know that by the time the sun came up, everything I thought I knew about my daughter and my own life would be shattered into a million pieces. Much worse than any broken glass on the floor of a rich man's patio. Never in my life had I stayed in a place that had stars in its rating. When my wife and I went on our honeymoon 40 years ago, we broke the bank on a cheap motel in Palm Springs, $30 a night, free drip coffee in the lobby, and a beautiful view of the parking lot. Our anniversary trips consisted of camping in Big Bear with a 2-person tent and a gas stove. The mere idea of a 5-star resort was something I flipped past in dentist waiting room magazines, but never imagined stepping foot in until Carter pulled the car up to the Waldorf Astoria in the most exclusive part of Beverly Hills. "This is your home for as long as you need," Carter told me. He had booked the suite 3 days ago. Before the party, before the slap, before the blood, he knew, somehow, he knew I was going to need a place to drop off the map, and I realized, with a knot in my throat, that he had been planning my rescue with the same cold calculation Audrey used to plan my ruin. The only difference was that one of them was doing it out of love. The Rolls-Royce entered through a private access, completely bypassing the main lobby. The hotel staff was already waiting with a golf cart. 2 employees in impeccable uniforms nodded at Carter as if following military orders. No questions, no check-in desk. Just pure, silent efficiency. We crossed the property in absolute silence. The grounds looked like a dream agave plants lit from below, trees casting long shadows, and the heavy scent of night-blooming jasmine perfuming the air. The resort sprawled at the foot of the hills, pools glowing like liquid turquoise in the dark. The suite was at the farthest edge, private and hidden. The staff unlocked the door, handed Carter a key card, and vanished. I walked in. The space opened up before my eyes like a palace from another world. A massive open-concept living room with leather furniture, modern art on the walls, and a granite kitchen I'd never know how to use. Beyond that, 2 bedrooms. The bathroom had a rain shower and a stone tub big enough for 2, but what stole my breath was the back wall, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire basin. Through the glass, I saw a private terrace with its own plunge pool, a stone fireplace, and beyond that, the city lights stretching out like a carpet of glowing embers, with the dark silhouette of the hills cutting against the night sky. I walked to the window and pressed my bandaged hand against the cold glass. "I can see the stars," I whispered. Carter stood next to me, hands in his pockets. "It's been a long time since you stopped to look at the stars, hasn't it?" I shook my head. "Yeah, a long time." He didn't ask why. He already knew. The last 8 years of my life had been an exercise in survival, not living. I hadn't looked at the sky in an eternity. A knock on the door broke the spell. Carter opened it. An older man with silver hair and a compassionate gaze stood in the hallway, carrying a leather medical bag. "Lawrence, this is Dr. Alan Brooks," Carter said. "He's going to take a look at that hand." I blinked, in disbelief. "You got a doctor at midnight. I got everything we need." The doctor offered his hand. His handshake was gentle. "Lawrence, I'm very sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. Let's see what we're dealing with." He pointed to the dining table. I sat down. He pulled up a chair next to me and, with infinite delicacy, started unwrapping the linen napkin Maggie had tied around me. Dried blood made the fabric stick to the wound. I winced in pain. The doctor examined the cut, turning my hand under the light. Glass laceration, about 1 inch long. It's not incredibly deep, but it will need stitches. You're lucky. Lawrence, 1/4 inch deeper, and we'd be talking about severed tendons and nerve damage. Lucky. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. He cleaned the wound with an antiseptic that burned like hell itself. Much worse than the original cut. Then came the local anesthesia, a needle, a prick, and a numbness that spread like cold water. 5 stitches. Small. Precise. Perfect. The doctor worked in silence, with economical, steady movements. When he finished, he wrapped my hand in immaculate white gauze. Then he leaned back, studying my face. "You also have a contusion on your left temple," he said. "You hit your head when you fell." I touched my face with my good hand. There was a painful lump near my hairline. "I think so. Honestly, I don't remember it clearly. I'm ordering a CT scan first thing in the morning, purely as a precaution. With head trauma at your age, we don't flip coin. I'm fine. Really, you're going to get the scan." "Dad." The word hung, suspended in the air. "Dad." Carter said it so naturally, as if he had been saying it for years instead of this being the very first time. He was leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, his gaze firm but full of tenderness. Neither of us mentioned what he had just said, but I felt the word take root in my chest. Varm. Unexpected. Saving me. The doctor packed his things. "Keep the stitches dry for 48 hours. No showers. Sponge baths only. I'll be back tomorrow after your CT scan." He pulled a bottle of pills from his bag and left it on the table. "Mild pain killers. Take one, if the throbbing won't let you rest. Try to get some sleep." He shook my good hand and left. The door clicked shut. Silence flooded the room. I looked around. Eleanor, the lawyer, was sitting on the leather sofa. Her briefcase was open next to her, and on her lap rested a thick file, about 4 inches across. Marcus, the PI, was standing by the window with a laptop open on the table, the screen glowing in the dim light. Carter pulled up a chair across from me and sat down, resting his elbows on his knees, looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. At some point during the chaos of the last 2 hours, someone had gotten me clean clothes. A hotel robe was hanging on the bathroom door. My old Civic was gone. My old life had disappeared. I was sitting in a 5-star resort, wearing borrowed clothes, with my hand stitched up, across from a man who had just called me Dad for the first time. I had no idea what came next, but I knew I couldn't keep running. I couldn't keep covering my eyes. I looked at Carter, at Eleanor, at Marcus. I looked at that massive file on the computer screen, loaded with the secrets they had been keeping from me. "Tell me everything," I ordered. My voice came out low, but rock solid. Maybe the first solid thing I'd said in months. Carter didn't move for a moment. He looked at me with what seemed to be a mix of pity and profound grief. Then he traded looks with Eleanor and Marcus, and nodded. Eleanor picked up the massive file and dropped it onto the coffee table with a heavy thud. Marcus turned his laptop screen so I could see it. Carter leaned forward, interlaced his fingers, and when he finally spoke, every word was measured and heavy. 4 months ago, in May, I realized something was wrong. There was $25. 000 missing from the joint bank account I share with Audrey. And that is where the nightmare started. Carter leaned back into his chair, locking his eyes on some distant point beyond the window. Then he began his story. 4 months ago, early one morning in May, a phone alert woke me up. A bank notification. A massive withdrawal from our joint checking account. 25元. 000 vanished. When I asked Audrey about the money at breakfast, she didn't even look up from her coffee. A charity donation? she told me. For a women's shelter downtown. I asked her which shelter. She said she'd find the receipt for me later. She never did. I watched him as he spoke. His hands were clasped loosely, but his jaw was clenched so tight it was white. This was a man who had been swallowing poison in secret for 4 months. I wanted to believe her. Lawrence. I swear to God I did. But I'm a businessman. I've built 3 companies from the ground up. I know when the numbers don't add up. And $25. 000 doesn't just disappear by magic in the name of charity without leaving a paper trail. He paused, looked at Marcus, and then back at me. So, I did something I had never done before. I stopped trusting my wife, and I hired someone to find the truth. Marcus, the PI, nodded slightly but stayed silent. Carter continued. I investigated it myself first. I called every damn women's shelter in the greater Los Angeles area. None of them had received a major donation in May. Not from Audrey. Not from anyone matching her description. I felt a block of ice settle in my stomach. When I cornered her about it, she changed her story. She said she gave it in cash, that they don't always give receipts. Carter shook his head bitterly. But foundations always document amounts like that. Audrey knows that. She used to work in fundraising for non-profits. She knows exactly how this works. So you knew she was lying to you. I whispered. I knew something was rotten. So I hired Marcus, ex-Lapd, now a private investigator. I gave him one single order. Find out where that money went. And do it quietly. Marcus spoke for the first time. His voice was deep, professional. It took me 2 weeks to track the money. Lawrence. It was deposited into a hidden account that Audrey had opened 6 months prior. Mr. Sterling had no idea it existed. How much was in that account, I asked. Over $75. Ling. Carter answered. The $25K, I noticed, was just the latest deposit. There were other withdrawals, smaller amounts, bleeding out of our account over 6 months. I was an idiot for not paying attention. The air in the room grew thick, unbreathable. Eleanor watched Carter from the sofa with clinical concentration. Carter kept talking. By the 4th week, Marcus started tailing Audrey. Physical surveillance. He followed her to 3 different law firms in a span of 2 weeks. He looked me dead in the eyes. Lawyers specializing in family law, elder care, and conservatorships. My mouth went completely dry. Audrey was meeting with lawyers to find out how to declare a person legally incompetent, how to take absolute control of their finances, their healthcare decisions, their entire life. Marcus stepped away from the window. By the 5th week, I discovered the psychiatric appointments. Dr. Patty Evans. 4 visits in June. Audrey was requesting psychiatric evaluations for a family member, requesting medical histories, dementia tests. She was building a case. Eleanor chimed in, a tone devoid of emotion. A case to have a judge declare you mentally incompetent. Lawrence, it's a legal process. She needed documents, a doctor's ruling, irrefutable proof that you could no longer take care of yourself or manage your money, like gusts of freezing wind. I remembered the conversations Audrey and I had over the last few months. Her questions disguised as affection. Dad, do you remember what day it is today? Did you take your pills this morning? You've seemed really confused lately. Dad, little poisonous comments, planting seeds of doubt in my own head. Carter saw the terror creeping into my eyes. By the 6th week, Marcus connected the dots. Conservatorship lawyers, plus psychiatrique évaluation, plus a secret bank account. It's a textbook pattern. Her father. I whispered, you. Carter confirmed. The silence swallowed us all. I confronted her. Carter said, in late June, at the house. I asked her directly about the $25. Ling, ling, ling. I told her. That wasn't for charity. Was it? He paused, and I saw how the weight of that argument still choked him. I caught her off guard. She said she needed the money for something else. I told her I knew about the secret account. I watched her face morph. She got furious. She screamed at me, asked if I had put a PI on her. He took a deep breath. Then I asked her what the hell she needed a hidden account for. You know what she said, what she used as her excuse. What did she say? She flipped the script. She said it was for times you, that you were doing really badly, that you were forgetting things, losing your mind, that she was desperately worried and didn't know how to tell me. I felt the lie smash into my face like I had been slapped all over again. I asked her why she was meeting with lawyers to put you under a conservatorship, why she hadn't talked to me about it first. Carter's voice turned to stone. She got defensive, accused me of spying on her. I told her, if your dad needs help, I'll pay for whatever he needs. But this, secret accounts, lawyers behind my back, psychiatrists. This doesn't smell like help. You know what she screamed at me. She said, I don't have to explain anything to you. He is times my times, father. And she turned around and left me standing there. The image floated in front of me. Audrey, my little girl, turning her back on her husband because he dared to question her lies. Carter leaned forward. After that fight, I realized the woman I was looking at was not the woman I married. So I called Marcus. I told him, keep digging. For the next 2 months, July and August, the investigation hit rock bottom. Carter continued. We brought in Eleanor, a specialist in elder financial abuse. They got court orders, subpoenaed emails, hired a forensic accountant. They looked into Doc Evans and found a disgusting history of medical malpractice lawsuits. And Marcus started surveilling you. I never realized I was being followed. I said, that's the point of my job. Lawrence. Marcus replied, Mr. Sterling wanted to verify Audrey's story. If you truly had dementia, maybe your daughter's actions had some twisted justification, but you didn't find that, did you? I didn't. I found a 64-year-old man living alone, but totally independent. You mowed your own lawn. You drove without issue. You went to the grocery store, to the library, totally lucid, not a single sign of cognitive decline. Marcus paused. You were very isolated. Yes, alone. But you weren't confused. You weren't crazy. Carter's voice dropped to a murmur. In August. Marcus handed me the final report. Your father-in-law does not have dementia, but your wife is doing everything possible to make the world believe he does. I squeezed my eyes shut. I had 2 options. Carter said, confront her again and risk her destroying the evidence. Or wait, build a legal case so bulletproof it could protect you from her. I chose to wait. Until 2 weeks ago, Audrey brought the conservatorship papers to the house. She asked me to sign as a witness. She said it would make things easier. And for the first time in years, maybe the first time in my life, I told her no. 2 weeks ago, I repeated slowly. She brought me papers to grant her power of attorney. I told her no. Carter leaned in, and what did she do? She got incredibly angry. Said I was being stubborn. Difficult. I told her I wasn't signing anything. I looked at Carter. She left. She didn't speak to me for a whole week. And then she invited me to her birthday party. And she hit you tonight. Carter stated, not over the damn watch. She hit you because you told her no. Because for the first time in your life, you didn't let her push you around. The naked truth crashed down on me like a slab of concrete. What else did you find? I asked. Marcus crossed the room, opened his laptop, and turned the screen toward me. Everything he said from this moment on would change my life forever. The screen showed a spreadsheet, rows and columns of numbers, dates, categories highlighted in neon yellow and blood red. At the top, in thick black letters, I read, Financial Analysis Audrey Sterling, prepared by David Reynolds, forensic accountant. And right underneath that, discrepancies identified $284. Ling, ling, ling. I still didn't fully understand what I was looking at, but the PI's face told me it was a catastrophe. Lawrence, this is Audrey's financial profile. The forensic accountant built this by pulling credit histories, bank statements, and public records. What you are looking at on this screen is the exact reason your daughter has spent 4 months planning a criminal fraud. He clicked on the first tab, Income and Expenses. Audrey's base salary as a VP is $175, 000 a year. But look at her annual expenses. He pointed to a column on the right. She spends nearly $275, 000 a year. I stared at the numbers, feeling dizzy. How the hell does she spend $100, 000 more than she makes? That was the exact same question we asked ourselves. Marcus said. He clicked on the next screen. Credit cards. 4 accounts. All exclusively in Audrey's name. American Express maxed out at $25. Ling ling ling. Visa at 18. WuBay. MasterCard at $16. Ling ling ling. Luxury department store cards totaling $15. Ling ling ling. Total credit card debt, $74. WuBay. Carter, sitting next to me, spoke in a dark whisper. I didn't know these cards existed. Marcus nodded. She opened them using a different address. The statements went to a P.O. box in Beverly Hills. I looked at Carter, feeling his pain. She hid this from you. For how long? At least 2 years. Carter said, his voice dead. Maybe more. Marcus clicked again. But the credit cards are child's play. The real black hole is this. The screen changed. Cryptocurrency. Operations 2022. I saw a logo I recognized from the news Coinbase, an account in Audrey's name, and a timeline that made me nauseous. January 2022. She deposited $180. Ling, ling, ling. Where did she get that kind of money? I asked in horror. Cash advances from the credit cards, plus massive withdrawals from the savings accounts she shared with Mr. Sterling. She dumped absolutely everything into crypto. From February to April 2022, she invested it into a token called Luna Classic. My Oniki. 2022. Portfolio value $125. Total loss cent 75. 875. I was glued to the screen. She lost almost $180. 000 on nothing. In 3 months. Marcus finished on a speculative cryptocurrency that went to zero during the Terra Luna scandal. The biggest crypto collapse in history at the time. Carter's voice dripped with pure venom. I didn't find out about any of this until I hired Marcus. The PI leaned back in his chair. So, by May 2022, Audrey was drowning. She had lost a fortune in crypto. She owed $75K in credit cards, and she was still burning $100. 0 Zero. Zero. A year above her salary. Add it all up. And she was buried in a hole worth over $284. Ling, ling, ling. The numbers stared back at me from the screen. 284美元. Ling, ling, ling. And what did she do then, I asked. Feeling like I couldn't get any air, Marcus looked me straight in the eyes. She started looking for a way out. Lawrence. And that's when she set her sights on you. He clicked on a new tab. Asset Summary Lawrence. Last name. My name at the very top. My entire financial life. 40 years of breaking my back. Broken down into rows and columns. Retirement fund, 401k. IRA, $350. Ling, ling, ling. Primary residence. The Valley fully paid, $800. Ling, ling, ling. Monthly pension, $2. Wubai. Social Security, $2. Ling, ling, ling. Total liquid assets and property, $1. 150. Ling, ling, ling. I felt my throat close up. You guys know how much money I have? Marcus's face didn't flinch. Property records are public. Your pension and Social Security can be accurately estimated based on your years of service. The 401k is a very precise projection. I'm a private investigator. Lawrence, this is what I do. He paused, and Audrey had access to this information. 2. She knew you had your life savings. She knew the deed to your house was clear and in your name, to someone drowning in debt. You were a $1, 2 million lifeboat. Eleanor, the lawyer, spoke up, her tone clinical and precise. Audrey's plan was very simple. Obtain a legal conservatorship over you. Once a judge named her your legal guardian, she would have absolute authority. She could sell your $800 000 house, liquidate your $350k retirement accounts, pocket your $4, $500 a month in pension and Social Security. She could get her hands on over $1 million almost instantly. That wipes out her debt, plugs the crypto hole, and funds her rich girl lifestyle for years to come. I looked at the numbers. Yeah, $2 million. My entire life. 40 years of waking up before dawn. Of never missing a single day of work. Reduced to loot, but if she needed money, I said, slurring my words slightly, I would have given it to her. She's my daughter. If she had just asked me. Carter cut me off sharply. Asking means admitting she has a problem. Lawrence, admitting she gambled and lost. Audrey doesn't ask for help. Audrey takes what she needs and justifies it later. Marcus clicked on another document. Bank, account, activity. March 2024. She had already been practicing 6 months ago. Lawrence. She convinced you to put her as a joint owner on your checking account. Didn't she? I remembered it. March. Audrey had come to my house. She told me it would be much easier if she could help me pay the utility bills in case of a medical emergency. That if I ended up in the hospital, she needed access so they wouldn't shut my power off. Yes, I answered. She told me it was just in case something happened to me. Marcus scrolled down through the records. In the 8 weeks following that signature, she withdrew $40. 0, 0, 0 from that account. RTMS. Cashier's checks. Direct transfers to her Coinbase account. The withdrawals were highlighted in radioactive yellow. April 3rd. April 10th. May 5th. I asked her about that money. I whispered. I confronted her. And what did she tell you? She told me. She told me that Times had spent it. on house repairs, for a leaky roof. She told me I had forgotten. Carter's jaw tightened. You didn't forget. Lawrence. She stole it. And then she did everything she could to convince you that you were going crazy. The weight of the revelation crushed me into the chair. Heavier than the slap. Heavier than the public humiliation. She had made me doubt my own sanity. She had made me believe that the ghost of Alzheimer's, the same one that took her grandmother, was coming for me. Eleanor leaned forward. The bank account was a pilot test. Lawrence, Audrey took $40. Ling, ling, ling. And you noticed. You questioned her. That's when she realized she couldn't just drain your accounts without you making a scene. She needed legal authority. A conservatorship gave her absolute power to rob you in broad daylight. With a judge's permission. I thought about 2 weeks ago. Audrey sitting at my kitchen table with a stack of legal papers and a pen in her hand. Just sign here. Dad, it's going to make everything so much easier for both of us. If I had signed those papers, I said, my voice breaking, you would have handed her your entire life on a silver platter. Eleanor stated, you would have granted her legal immunity to leave you on the street. Marcus closed one of the windows on the computer. But you didn't sign. You told her no. And that was when Audrey panicked. That was when she decided to humiliate me. I said, at the party, in front of 200 people, Carter slowly shook his head. She was punishing you. The slap was because you dared to set a boundary. Because for the first time, you didn't surrender to her control. The truth settled over me like a burial shroud. What else did you find? I asked. Marcus crossed the room, opened his computer, and turned the screen toward me again. The next document wasn't a spreadsheet. It was an email. Subject line times evaluation for my dad. Sender Audrey Sterling. Recipient Patty Evans. Date June 15. 2024. And the instant I started reading, I felt something inside me turn to ice. It wasn't the cold of rage. It was the kind of grave chill you feel when you realize someone from your own bloodline has been designing your destruction with the same care people use to plan a vacation. I had never heard the name Patty Evans before tonight, but apparently she had drafted a 9-page psychiatric report declaring me mentally incompetent. She cited cognitive tests I had never taken. She described erratic behaviors I had never exhibited. And she stamped a diagnosis that would have stripped me of all my civil and legal rights, all for a cash payment of $15. Ling, ling, ling. Marcus turned the laptop so I could read every letter. These emails came from Audrey's personal account. We subpoenaed them after Eleanor got on the case in July. The first email was from June 15th. Audrey wrote to her Patty, saying she hoped she was doing well and that she needed help with a very delicate issue. She explained that her dad, Lawrence, Lucius, had been showing severe signs of memory loss and confusion. She said she was terrified of me living alone and asked for an emergency psychiatric evaluation. She just wanted to make sure I was okay and see if I needed permanent assistance. Who the hell is this woman? I asked. Patricia Evans, Marcus said, not taking his eyes off the screen. Licensed psychiatrist in California. Went to UCLA Medical School with Audrey. They were roommates their sophomore year. Hadn't talked much since graduation. But Audrey tracked her down in June. I stared at the email. It sounded so normal, so full of love. The worried daughter, caring for her aging father. Keep reading, Marcus ordered. He clicked on the next message. The reply came a week later. On June 22nd. Dr. Evans wrote that she had seen me that very morning at her clinic in Beverly Hills, that we had spent 90 minutes together doing memory tests, cognitive exercises, and talking. She told Audrey she had to be brutally honest. Your dad is perfectly lucid. He scored normal on all the tests. His memory is intact. His reasoning is perfect. There isn't a single red flag for dementia. I know you're worried, Audrey, but I swear your dad does not have dementia. Maybe he just forgets minor things due to age. Like everyone else. Hugs. I looked up, eyes wide. I never stepped foot in that woman's office. I've never seen her in my life. Marcus nodded. We know. Lawrence. We know, Doctor. Evans made that appointment up. She wrote the email as if it actually happened to leave a paper trail to protect herself. That way, if she was ever investigated, she could say, "Look, I told Audrey her dad was fine." She was covering her own back, but she knew perfectly well what was coming next. Carter leaned over the table. Audrey wasn't going to take no for an answer. Marcus opened the next email. It was sent 3 days later, at 1:47 p.m. Audrey's tone had drastically changed. The venom was practically dripping off the screen. She wrote to the doctor that she needed this diagnosis. That Patty wasn't understanding that this wasn't just out of worry. She needed an official piece of paper stating, "I had diminished mental capacity." Written and signed, and then Audrey pulled a ghost from the past. She reminded Patricia about a final pharmacology exam in their second year of med school. She reminded her how Patricia had copied answers from another student, and how Audrey had covered for her when the head professor almost failed her for academic fraud. Audrey had kept that secret for 15 years, and she was telling Patricia in plain English that she owed her. Audrey finished by saying she wasn't asking her to kill anyone. She just wanted an evaluation that said what she needed it to say, times early-stage dementia, diminished capacity, need for legal supervision, nothing more, and she would compensate her very well. 15美元 000, cash or wire transfer, whatever she preferred. She gave her a couple of days to think about it, but warned her not to take too long. Silence flooded the hotel suite. I read the words once, then again, and again. She threatened her. I said in a hoarse whisper. She blackmailed her with a cheating scandal from 15 years ago. Eleanor spoke from the sofa. Pure. Unadulterated extortion, combined with bribery to falsify medical documents. Both are felonies under California law. Carter's voice sounded bitter. Audrey doesn't ask, please. She looks for a way to hang you. And if she can't find a rope, she invents one. Marcus scrolled down to the last email in the chain, dated June 28th. Doctor. Evans' reply was short, dry, and defeated. She accepted. She said she would draft the medical report, but warned Audrey that if this ever came to light, if any judge or family member questioned the paper, this conversation never existed. Understood. She instructed Audrey to wire the money to a personal account in her husband's name, and that as soon as the funds cleared, she would hand over the signed and sealed evaluation. She ended by saying this was the last time she would ever ask her for a favor in her life. Marcus leaned back in his chair. She accepted for the money, because Audrey had her by the throat, and because Dr. Evans is drowning in debt from other malpractice suits. He opened a bank statement. The wire transfer details showed $15,000, moving from Audrey's personal account to Patricia Evans' husband's account on July 2nd. In the memo line, Audrey had shamelessly written Times Consulting Services, and she pulled that money from the secret account, the one she filled by stealing from you and Mr. Pass. Sterling. Marcus stated. She paid a psychiatrist $15. 000 to commit criminal fraud. I felt like I was going to throw up. Marcus clicked on the final document. Official letterhead. Dr. Patricia Evans, M.D. Board-certified psychiatrist. 9 pages of infamy. The psychiatric evaluation was dated June 22nd. It named me as the patient evaluated. Marcus scrolled through the text, slowly, reading fragments out loud, as if he were reading my death sentence. The report claimed I presented obvious signs of early cognitive decline consistent with Alzheimer's-type dementia. It stated that my memory impairment was severe during clinical tests, asserting I couldn't remember 3 simple words after a 5-minute distraction. It claimed I showed confusion regarding recent events and a marked inability and incompetence to manage his own financial affairs. The conclusion, signed and sealed by a specialist, dictated times. The patient's decision-making capacity is significantly impaired. Recommendation: immediate legal conservatorship and the appointment of a guardian are required to protect the patient from financial harm and exploitation. I jumped out of my chair. I couldn't sit anymore. I walked toward the massive window and stared out into the dark hills. I never took those tests. I said. My voice was shaking with rage and sorrow. None of that happened. We know. Lawrence, Marcus said softly. I turned around to look at them. She didn't just want to steal my money. She wanted to steal my mind. She wanted to erase me from the world. 12 years ago, my brother Henry and I stood in a notary public's office to read our parents' will, and we said the most rotten things 2 brothers can say to each other in this life. Poisonous words about favoritism, about who took care of whom, about money and love. It got so tangled that by the end, neither of us even remembered what we were really fighting about. We stopped speaking that very day. No more birthday calls. No more Christmas hugs. We ceased to exist to one another. 12 years of absolute silence. And 3 months ago, Audrey reached her hand right into that 12-year silence and used it as a knife against me. The thing about family estrangement is that it creates a void, a hole where trust used to be. And Audrey understood perfectly how voids work. She knew that when you haven't spoken to someone in over a decade, you have no way of knowing what their real life is like. You only know what you're told. And Audrey told Henry exactly what she needed him to believe. Marcus opened a new window on his computer. WhatsApp screenshots, this time. 3 months ago. Your daughter contacted your brother. The PI said I hadn't heard Henry's name out loud in years, and now here he was, dragged into Audrey's web like everyone else. My parents died 12 years ago. I said, almost to myself, 6 months apart. The will left me 60% of the estate, about $150. Ling, Ling, Ling. Henry got 40%. He was furious. Accused me of manipulating them on their deathbeds. Did you? Carter asked. Without judgment, I took care of them in their final years. I paid the hospital bills. I helped them with the mortgage on the old house. I took unpaid leave from work to bathe them and spoon-feed them. I didn't do it for the damn money. I did it because they were my parents and they needed me. But Henry saw it differently. Henry saw favoritism. Marcus concluded. We yelled at each other in the lawyer's office. We said atrocious things. And when we walked out that door, we never spoke another word to each other. 12 years. Marcus. 12 dead years. Marcus turned the laptop toward me until Audrey broke the silence. The screen showed a text conversation. Audrey had reached out to Henry in late July, telling him she was desperate and incredibly worried about me. She told him I had been having severe memory problems for months. Missing doctor's appointments. Getting lost in my own neighborhood streets. She invented a story that just last week, I had left the gas stove on and almost burned the whole house down. that she had arrived by pure coincidence. The kitchen was full of smoke, and I hadn't even noticed. I felt a dizzy spell hit my stomach. None of that happened. I never left the stove on. There was never any smoke. Marcus nodded. We checked. There are no fire department reports at your address. There's no smoke damage to the property. Your stove is electric. Lawrence, it's way harder to start an accidental fire with an electric stove. She made it all up from start to finish. The messages continued. Audrey swore to Henry that she had taken me to a psychiatrist and that I had been diagnosed with early-onset dementia, probably Alzheimer's. She said I was being stubborn, refusing help, in total denial. She begged Henry to talk to me, that may be coming from his own brother. I would listen to reason. She told him she was terrified for my life. He believed her. I said, my voice cracking, he had no reason not to believe her. Lawrence, Carter chimed in, his voice gentle. He hadn't spoken a word to you in 12 years. The only thing he knew about your life was the tragedy Audrey was painting for him. 5 days later, Henry called me. I remembered that call like an ice pick to the brain. July 25th, around 7:00 p.m. Henry's raspy voice on the other end of the line. It's Henry. Audrey told me you're losing your mind, that you have dementia, that you almost burned the house down. I answered furiously. I told him I was perfectly fine. I didn't have dementia, and I had never stepped foot in a psychiatrist's office. He got frustrated, impatient, using that same know-it-all tone he always had. He told me Audrey had warned him I would be in denial. I got pissed off. I yelled at him that he had no right to call me after 12 years, just to demand I sign my rights over to my daughter. And I hung up on him. I thought he was just being the same old Henry. I told Marcus. I thought he was still bitter about the inheritance and was using this as an excuse to bother me. Audrey counted on that. The detective stated, she knew your history. She knew the resentment, and she used it as a weapon. The messages continued after that phone call. Audrey texted Henry, telling him my angry, denial-filled reaction was a classic, textbook symptom of dementia, that I had good days and bad days, and that he had surely caught me on a lucid day. Then she asked for a favor. She asked if he would be willing to sign a sworn affidavit, a simple piece of paper, saying that based on what she had informed him and the phone call, he was also concerned for my mental health. She told him that paper would help immensely with the legal process to get me into a safe facility. Marcus opened an email where Audrey attached a draft of a notarized affidavit for Henry. The document stated in legalese that Times Henry last name supports the efforts of his niece to provide Lawrence last name with adequate care and legal supervision due to his cognitive decline. He almost signed it. Marcus said. Audrey called him twice, pressured him, backed him into a corner, but something stopped him. Henry felt something didn't add up. He told Audrey it didn't feel right to sign such a serious legal document when he hadn't seen you in person in over a decade. And then you guys contacted him. I guessed. Marcus nodded. I went to see him last week. I laid all the cards on the table. I showed him Dr. Evans' emails, Audrey's financial fraud, the fake medical report. I proved to him with forensic evidence that Audrey had played him like a puppet. What did Henry say? He said, "Dear God, she lied to my face about everything." Marcus looked at me with empathy. He felt sick to his stomach. Lawrence, furious with himself for believing her so easily, he asked me to apologize on his behalf. And he asked if you would be willing to speak with him when this hell is all over. I stood up and walked to the window. My eyes were burning. For 12 years. I said in a whisper, I thought Henry didn't want to talk to me because of the inheritance, but now I see it. What if Audrey made sure to keep us fighting? What if she knew that as long as Henry and I weren't speaking, I wouldn't have anyone in the world? No family visiting. Nobody to notice if something went wrong. Carter's voice sounded behind me, full of sorrow. Isolation is an abuser's #1 tactic. Lawrence, your own daughter isolated you from your own blood. I turned around. Is Henry really going to testify against her? Marcus didn't hesitate for a second. He signed a real sworn affidavit with us just yesterday. He declares under penalty of perjury that Audrey contacted him under false pretenses, deliberately lied about your health, and attempted to manipulate him into supporting a fraudulent conservatorship. He is 100% willing to stand up in front of a judge and sink her. I slumped back into the chair. When I spoke, my voice broke. Tell him yes. Tell him I'll talk to him as soon as this is all over. Marcus nodded respectfully, then closed the tab with the messages and looked at me with an expression that bordered on pity. Lawrence, there's one more thing you need to see. Something Audrey did 6 months ago. Something she invested a lot of time in to convince you it was your fault. He opened new screens, bank statements, withdrawal records, dates from March, and I felt the room start to spin, because I knew exactly what he was going to show me. March, 6 months before the birthday party, 6 months before the slap. Audrey showed up at my house on a Sunday afternoon with 2 bags of groceries from Trader Joe's and a box of blueberry muffins, the exact ones my wife used to buy. She smiled at me when I opened the door, kissed my cheek, and said, "I miss you so much. Dad, I wanted to spend some time with you." And I believed her. I believed her with all my soul, because I wanted to believe her. Because she was all I had left in this world. During the 6 months that followed that Sunday, I lived submerged in a fog of pure terror, a fear that had no name. I started keeping a blue spiral notebook next to my bed. In it, I wrote down everything I did that day, every conversation, every phone call, every single damn dollar I spent. I reviewed it obsessively, 3, 4 times a day, sweating cold, convinced I was losing my mind, convinced that the mental darkness my wife was so terrified of in her final days was finally coming to take me. 2, but I wasn't going crazy. I was being erased, methodically and coldly erased from reality by my own daughter. Marcus closed Henry's messages and opened a new file, the screen filled with yellow rows. Transaction, dates, amounts. He turned the laptop toward me. This is your Chase checking account. Lawrence, from March to May 2024. I leaned forward. The starting balance at the top read $87. Soubay. By the time I reached the bottom of the page, it had dropped to $47. Ling, ling, ling. 40美元. Ling, ling, ling. I whispered, feeling like I was suffocating. $40,000. Marcus corrected. Vanished in 8 weeks. I remembered that damn Sunday in March. Audrey putting away groceries in my kitchen, serving the muffins on ceramic plates, making coffee for us both, sitting across from me at the same table where I had eaten breakfast alone like a dog for 8 years. She said in that sweet, worried voice times, "Dad, I've been thinking, what if something happens to you? What if you have a medical emergency and I can't help you because I don't have access to your accounts to pay the hospital?" She swore on her mother's memory. She wasn't trying to control my money. She just wanted to be ready to help in case of a tragedy. 2 days later, we were sitting in a Chase branch in the valley. The account manager slid the papers over to sign, explaining that by making her a joint owner, Audrey would have absolute power to withdraw, transfer, or empty the account if she wanted. Audrey squeezed my hand under the table. It's only for emergencies. Dad, he promised. And I, like an old idiot. Signed. The first withdrawal happened a week later. 4美元. 800 taken from an ATM. Then $6. 200 in a cashier's check. Then wire transfers of $5. 0, 0, 0, going straight to her crypto account. By the 5th week, I noticed. I started checking my balance compulsively, watching my money evaporate like water in the desert. That was when I called her, my heart in my throat. I told her I thought my card had been cloned. That money was missing. A lot of money. 40美元. Ling, ling, ling. At first, she acted surprised. Then, her tone changed. She still sounded sweet, but with a condescending edge of pity. She said, "Dad, we already talked about this. Don't you remember the roof repair, what it cost to fix the broken pipes?" I asked her what repair she was talking about. Her tone got even more patient, as if talking to a toddler. She reminded me the contractors had come in April, that I had signed the contract with the roofer myself, that we had both reviewed the estimate together in my living room. I remember squeezing the phone until my knuckles hurt, my mind racing 1,000,000 miles an hour, digging through my brain looking for that memory. Had contractors come? Had I signed a contract? Had all of that really been wiped from my head? She told me with a tragic sigh, "Don't worry, Daddy. This is why we opened the joint account. Remember, so I could take care of things when you get confused." When you get confused. Those words hit me in the gut like a baseball bat. I hung up the phone and immediately went out to the backyard. I inspected every inch of the roof, every PVC pipe, every water valve. Everything was perfectly fine. Everything was exactly the same as it was 5 years ago. But the rotten seed of doubt had already been planted in my brain. What if I really had forgotten? What if this is how Alzheimer's starts? First the roof, then names, then forgetting how to breathe. That night, I started writing in the blue notebook that now rested in my suitcase here in the hotel. I looked at Marcus's screen. 8 weeks. 8 massive withdrawals. 40美元. Ling, ling, ling. There was never any roof repair. "Lawrence," Marcus said in a heavy voice, "we went to the city to check construction permits. There's not a single permit in your name for the last 3 years. We also had a property appraiser look at your house from the outside last week. The property is in perfect condition, but old. There are no recent repairs of any kind." Carter leaned forward, his eyes shooting sparks. "Show him the texts." Marcus. The PI switched windows. A WhatsApp screenshot between Audrey and her friend Chloe. Dated May 28th. Audrey was texting Chloe late at night, laughing, with crying laughing emojis, about how her dad had swallowed the roof story whole. Chloe replied in disbelief times, "Girl, you're crazy. 40 grand and he bought it times." Audrey replied that I had called her crying, terrified of losing my mind. She wrote that she almost felt sorry for the old man, followed by more laughing emojis. Chloe called her an ice queen, and Audrey finished the conversation by saying times, "It's not being a bitch, Chlo. It's pure strategy. The conservatorship hearing is in 6 weeks. By then, he'll be doubting his own mind so much. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him without a peep." I stopped breathing. The whole room tilted around me. Carter's hand landed on my shoulder. Firm. A heavy anchor keeping me from flying away. But I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. She wanted you to doubt yourself, Marcus said. That was the main objective. Steal the money, and use the theft itself to break your sanity. By the time the petition went to the judge, you were going to be so emotionally destabilized, you wouldn't have the strength to fight back. I thought about my blue notebook. Pages and pages of desperate documentation. Proof I wrote to myself, to prove I wasn't crazy, that the world was still real, that I could still trust my own brain. I wrote everything down. I said, my voice barely a puff of air. For 4 months, every purchase, every conversation, I thought I was going crazy. You weren't, Marcus stated with absolute firmness. You were right about everything. Something broke inside me. A deep crack. It wasn't relief. It wasn't triumph. It was something much darker and heavier. It was grief for the 4 months I spent living in hell, questioning my own reality, torturing myself in silence. Carter's hand squeezed my shoulder hard. When he spoke, his voice was thick with contained emotion. You were right, Dad. You were right the whole time. There it was again. Dad. It was the second time he had called me that. Not Lawrence. Dad. I looked up at him. This man who didn't share my blood, but who had spent 4 months descending into hell itself to pull me out. And I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. I cried like an old child. Eleanor, the lawyer, snapped her leather briefcase shut with a sharp thud that brought me back to reality. Elder financial abuse, extreme psychological abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud. And now we have documented proof of premeditation. She looked me in the eye. Relentless. This is enough. Lawrence. More than enough. I wiped my eyes with the back of my good hand, the other still throbbing under the white bandages. What happens now? Eleanor's expression was of an icy, absolute calm, and for the first time since Audrey had slapped across the face 6 hours ago, I felt something very different from terror. Now, the lawyer said, now, we build justice. Over the next 3 days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, Carter, Eleanor, and Marcus built a legal case so airtight and armored that not even the most expensive, corrupt lawyer in Los Angeles could find a crack in it. They started by proving, with irrefutable evidence, the one thing Audrey had spent months lying about, that I was perfectly, entirely, undeniably sane. And they did it by putting me through a test that terrified me to my bones. Cedars-Sinai is one of the top specialty hospitals in the country. If anyone could prove I wasn't losing my mind or confirm my worst nightmares, it was them. And that was exactly what terrified me. Because after 4 months of Audrey drip-feeding me doubt like poison, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. What if the tests showed their times was times something wrong with my brain? Sunday passed in a thick fog of rest and strategic planning. Eleanor laid out the master plan while we ate breakfast on the suite's terrace. First, do we prove before a notary and medical experts that you are 100% competent? Medical evaluation at the best hospital. Second, we collect witness statements. Third, we document every dollar Audrey moved and build a flawless timeline. And then, and only then, we go for the jugular with the district attorney. How long is all this going to take? I asked, feeling my chest tighten. We move at the speed of light. Eleanor replied sharply. Audrey has no idea we're building a criminal case against her. The element of surprise is our best weapon. Monday morning, Carter drove me in the Rolls-Royce to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. Inside an office that smelled of money and sterile air, Dr. Helen Warren, head of neurology, was waiting for us. She was a tall, Imposing woman with grey hair cut in a perfect bob, radiating decades of medical authority. "Lawrence," she said, shaking my hand firmly. "I understand you've been led to believe you're suffering from cognitive decline. We are going to put that to the most exhaustive tests that exist today. And what happens if you find something wrong?" "Doctor," my voice cracked with pure fear. "Doctor." Warren's expression softened, becoming deeply human. "If there is, we will face it head on. But from what Mr. Sterling's team has told me, I highly doubt we're going to find any kind of damage. Let's find out." The evaluation lasted 3 damn hours. Memory exams. She gave me 3 random words to remember times apple, table, pen, and asked me to repeat them 5 minutes later. I did it flawlessly. Spatial reasoning, copying complex geometric shapes, drawing a clock marking an exact time. Language tests, naming objects quickly, repeating convoluted sentences. Executive function, logic, problem scenarios, pattern recognition, attention, counting backward from 100, subtracting by 7s. I didn't make a single mistake. When Dr. Warren reviewed the final results, Carter was sitting next to me. "Tinses a violinstring." She looked at me across her massive mahogany desk and gave her verdict. "Lawrence, your cognitive function isn't just normal. It is statistically superior to the average for your age group." She turned her computer monitor so we could see the graph. "Your score is 142 out of 144 possible points. That puts you in the 98th percentile for 6 4-year-old males. You categorically do not have dementia, 0 signs of Alzheimer's, 0 cognitive decline. Whoever signed a paper saying otherwise is either completely incompetent or a criminal lying with malicious intent. A knot the size of a fist formed in my throat. So, I don't have dementia. Really. You don't, Doctor, Warren stated firmly. Your brain is completely healthy. I am going to draft a full expert report backing this up. I covered my face with my hands and broke down crying. This time, they weren't tears of shame. They were tears of a relief so deep and pure I felt them washing my soul clean. "Are you all right?" Lawrence, the doctor, asked, stepping closer. I lowered my wet hands. "I've spent 4 months living in terror, thinking I was losing myself, that I was fading out of the world, and you're telling me I'm fine." "You are more than fine." "Sir, she smiled as we walked out into the hospital parking garage. I stopped in my tracks and looked back at the glass building. "I'm not crazy," I said out loud. Tasting the words, Carter stood next to me and put a hand on my shoulder. "You never were." "Dad." That same afternoon, David Reynolds, the forensic accountant, called Eleanor with a discovery that made our blood run cold. He had been digging into Audrey's corporate credit card, the one issued by the tech company where she worked as VP of marketing. He found nearly $50, 0 inches personal expenses, disguised as operational costs over the last 18 months. Luxury dinners with clients that were actually weekend spa trips in Santa Barbara. Trips to marketing conventions that ended up being vacations to Cabo with her friends. Designer bags expensed as team-building materials. This is high-level corporate fraud, the accountant said over the speakerphone, and since the company is publicly traded and operates internationally, this is federal jurisdiction. We're talking about wire fraud and tax evasion. Document every penny. David, Eleanor ordered with a predator's smile. We're adding it all to the criminal file. Tuesday was witness day. Maggie was the first to arrive at Eleanor's downtown office. She gave a long, detailed written statement about the 20 years she'd spent watching Audrey treat me like dirt on her shoe. She described the slap at the party in excruciating detail, how she had to step in to stop the bleeding on my hand, and she signed it, swearing she was willing to take the stand in front of a judge if necessary. Meanwhile, Marcus, the PI, had tracked down 12 of the guests who were at the party and witnessed the hit. At first, most of them backed away, terrified of social retaliation in the closed, elite circles of Beverly Hills. But Marcus had a gift for pushing the right buttons, and eventually, they agreed to give official statements. 12 different people describing the exact same macabre scene: the slap, my fall, the shattering glass, and 200 people frozen in complicit silence. On Tuesday afternoon, my brother Henry arrived. We met in a private boardroom inside the Waldorf Astoria. When my brother walked through the door, older, with white hair and red-rimmed eyes, we stood on opposite sides of the mahogany table for a full minute that felt like a century. "Lawrence, forgive me," he finally said. His voice sounded raspy. "Broken. I should have called you. I should have verified things myself. Instead, I believed that girl, and I did a terrible thing to you. Audrey manipulated us both." "Henry," I replied, feeling the 12-year grudge crumbling away. "And I still regret what we said to each other 12 years ago. The fight, the insults, all of it. Me too, brother. It wasn't a movie-perfect reconciliation. No, there were still too many open wounds. But it was a first step in the right direction." Henry sat down and signed a notarized affidavit, detailing how Audrey had manipulated him with lies about my health to try and steal my estate. Meanwhile, the legal machine didn't stop. The California Medical Board had opened an emergency investigation into Dr. Evans on Monday morning. By Tuesday at noon, her medical license was temporarily suspended. Dr. Evans' lawyer contacted Eleanor, desperate, offering a deal. Dr. Evans would cooperate fully with the DA and testify against Audrey in open court in exchange for reduced fraud charges. The rat was abandoning the sinking ship Tuesday night. The entire team gathered in the living room of my suite. Eleanor spread all the documents across the glass coffee table. The Cedars-Sinai report proving I was cognitively superior, the forensic audit documenting the massive crypto losses, the debts, and the corporate embezzlement, the proven theft of the $40,000 from my checking account, Dr. Evans' incriminating emails, the extortion texts to my brother, Henry's sworn testimony, Maggie's statement, the testimonies from the 12 party guests, the bank statements, the wire transfers for the bribes, a blood-stained paper trail leading straight to Audrey's neck, and, of course, the high-definition video of the slap. This evidence is a reinforced concrete wall, Eleanor declared, reviewing the papers. Any district attorney would rub their hands together for this case. Any judge will lock her away without blinking. "What do we do now?" I asked. Feeling the weight of the decision, "We have two paths," the lawyer explained. "We file the criminal complaint tomorrow morning. First thing, Audrey gets arrested at her office, processed, and it's game over. Or we confront her first. We give her the chance to see with her own eyes the hell we've built for her." Carter leaned forward, his eyes shining with a cold fury. "I want to confront her." "Why?" Carter Eleanor asked, evaluating him. "Because I want her to know. I want her to realize she didn't get away with it. That she's not as smart as she thinks." He looked at me, And I want Lawrence to see her face the exact second she realizes her life is over. Eleanor nodded slowly. Fine. We set up a meeting. A neutral, public place, with enough people around so she doesn't try anything physically crazy. Marcus and I will be a few tables away. We confront her with the evidence and record her reaction. If in her desperation she confesses to anything, it's solid gold for the trial. If she denies it and gets violent, we go straight to the police. I'll call her tomorrow, Carter said, with a coldness that gave me chills. I'll tell her I want to talk about going to couples therapy. She'll come running. I looked at Carter, then at Eleanor. My heart was racing. I want to be there, not sitting at the table with them, but close enough to see her. We'll sit you at a corner table in the main dining room, Eleanor explained. You'll be able to see them through the glass panel of the private room, but they won't see you. You'll be far enough away not to hear the fight. It's safer for you emotionally. You'll just watch the body language. Sound good. It's perfect, I said. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in months. Because for the first time since Audrey put those damn conservatorship papers on my table, I wasn't afraid of her anymore. Wednesday, at 2:15 p.m. Carter made the call. I was sitting on the hotel terrace when I heard his voice through the cracked door. He sounded calm, firm, delivering a few words that seemed like an invitation, but were actually the death sentence for his marriage. Let's get dinner tonight. Just you and me. We need to talk. I watched him through the glass as he listened to Audrey's response. His face was a stone mask. I wondered if she had the slightest clue about the Category 5 hurricane waiting for her at Mastro's Steakhouse. Audrey thought this dinner was pure damage control. She had sent Carter 2 WhatsApp messages since the party, one on Saturday morning, complaining that I had humiliated her in public, and another on Monday, begging him to talk as soon as he got back from London. She had no idea Carter had never set foot in London, that he had been in LA the whole time, watching her, building the guillotine from the terrace. I could only hear Carter's replies. Audrey, it's me. A pause while she spoke, confident and relieved. I know. I came back early. Listen. We need to talk about Saturday. About everything. Another pause. I'm not discussing this over the phone. Let's do dinner at 8:00 p.m. Just the two of us. I could imagine Audrey's voice on the other end, anxious, accommodating, relieved that her millionaire husband was finally facing her after days of punishing her with silence. We'll talk about everything. Yes, Carter said, his tone calculated to the millimeter, but face to face. Are you coming? A longer pause. Perfect. 8:00 p.m. I booked a private room. I'll make the reservation. She must have said some term of endearment, because Carter closed his eyes for a second before responding with a dry voice. See you there. And he hung up. He left his phone on the table and stood perfectly still, looking out at the dry mountains. I walked up to the doorframe. What did she say? Carter turned to me. She said she was so sorry I had to deal with her dad's tantrum, that she was dying to explain everything, and that she loved me. He paused, and his expression split between infinite sadness and unforgiving steel. She has no earthly idea what's about to drop on her. By 3:00 p.m., Eleanor was at the hotel with the final strategy. We locked ourselves in the suite's boardroom for what she called the dress rehearsal. Carter sat across from her while the lawyer broke down every step of the confrontation like a general planning an invasion. Start calm, Eleanor ordered. Do not let her see a single drop of emotion on your face. Emotion gives her room to manipulate you. She's been married to you for 7 years. She knows how to read you. She knows what buttons to push to make you doubt. Do not give her that opening. You are a block of ice." Carter nodded. "Present the evidence, systematically. One punch at a time. Don't vomit the whole file on her at once, or she'll shut down. Build the cage bar by bar until she has nowhere to escape. And if she tries to get up and leave," Carter asked, "let her leave." Eleanor replied with a freezing smile. "But I assure you, she won't. Her ego won't allow it. She's going to want to explain. Spin it. Control the narrative. That's when you shut up and let her talk. If she says anything incriminating, let her talk all she wants. We'll be recording the audio. Everything that comes out of her mouth is just her nailing herself to the cross." They ran through the script over and over. Eleanor played Audrey perfectly. She got defensive, cried fake tears, tried to manipulate him, blamed him for working too much. Carter practiced keeping a cold stare and a monotone voice. Then Eleanor turned to me. "You don't have to be there, Lawrence. It's going to be brutal. I know." I answered, "But I want to be. I need to see her face when she realizes the theater is over. We're going to seat you at a corner table in the main dining room." She explained again. "You'll see them through the glass, but they won't see you. At 7:30 p.m., Marcus and an IT tech arrived at Mastro's Steakhouse before we did. The place was one of the most exclusive and noisy cuts of meat in Beverly Hills. Marcus installed tiny cameras in the private room Carter had reserved. It was completely legal under California law since Carter was an active party in the conversation and was consenting to the recording. Lapel mics served as backup. Eleanor and Marcus would monitor everything in real time from a tinted SUV in the underground parking structure. At 7:45 p.m., the maitre escorted me to my table in a dark corner of the main dining room. I had a clear view through the tinted glass door of the private room where Carter and Audrey would be. I ordered a black coffee I knew I wasn't going to touch. My stomach was in knots. I was wearing a baseball cap and kept my head down, pretending to be just another solitary diner among the rich fauna of the LA night. Carter arrived at 7:50 p.m. I saw him walk through the main room, passing 15 feet from my table without even glancing my way. Heading straight into the private room, he sat down with his back to the glass. He placed a black leather briefcase in front of him. I knew exactly what was inside: an iPad loaded with ammunition, divorce papers in a manila envelope, and the criminal complaint in another. Audrey arrived at 8:02 p.m. I watched her walk through the restaurant following the hostess. She was wearing an immaculate white sheath dress, her hair styled in perfect salon waves. Her makeup didn't have a single pore out of place. She walked with that arrogant, confident stride of someone who thinks they are about to put out a minor fire and save their marriage with a few tears and an expensive bottle of wine. The hostess opened the door to the private room. Through the glass, I saw Audrey's face light up when she saw Carter. She leaned over the table and kissed him on the cheek. I couldn't hear her, but I read her lips perfectly. "I missed you so much." Carter's voice was inaudible from my corner, but his body language was terrifyingly neutral. He gestured for her to sit down. Audrey took a seat. A waiter appeared, and I saw Audrey order wine, probably the most expensive bottle on the menu. When the glass arrived, she took a sip, leaned forward, and started talking animatedly. She moved her hands, gestured. She was surely talking about the party, about me. I watched her touch her chest with a look of feigned concern and shake her head, playing the victim. Then Carter moved. He leaned forward and said something. One word, maybe two. Audrey stopped mid-sentence. Her plastic smile deflated a little. Carter reached into his briefcase and pulled out the iPad. He placed it on the table, right between them. Audrey stared at the device. Her lips moved. "What is that?" Carter answered something that made Audrey's face lose all trace of color. He turned the iPad toward her, from my corner. I couldn't see the screen, but I knew exactly what image was frozen there. The courtyard of her mansion, and in the dead center of the screen, Audrey's hand raised. Milliseconds before smashing into my face, Audrey looked at the screen, then looked at Carter. Her expression morphed from confusion to comprehension, and from comprehension to sharp panic. Carter said something else and hit play on the video from my table. The restaurant was a hum of clinking glasses and loud laughter, but through that glass, in that private room, a summary execution was taking place. I saw Audrey watch her own crime. I saw her face go from bewilderment to absolute terror, and I saw Carter sitting across from the woman he had shared a bed with for 7 years, showing her the irrefutable proof of the monster she truly was. Before I tell you what Carter showed her next, I need to know you're still here with me, glued to this story. If you think Audrey deserves the full weight of the hell that's about to drop on her, type a 1 in the comments. If you feel this ambush is too cruel, type a 2. Your number tells me you're listening. And I swear to God, what happens in the next few minutes will leave you breathless. And a quick reminder, the following details are slightly dramatized to protect the innocent and deliver a lesson. If you feel the story gets too dark, don't hesitate to pause and find something lighter on the channel. Audrey finished watching the video of herself hitting me. 47 seconds of high-definition footage, captured from 3 different angles. Detective Cole had done the work of a surgeon. She saw the champagne flute shatter into 1,000 pieces. She saw my old body collapse onto the floor. She saw 200 people paralyzed, while Maggie knelt to bandage my bleeding hand. And when the video faded to black, Audrey looked up at Carter and let out the only pathetic lie her brain could formulate. Things aren't the way they look. Carter had rehearsed this exact moment with Eleanor 6 times. He knew by heart every emergency exit Audrey was going to try to use, every excuse, every crocodile tear. She's going to deny it, then deflect blame, then cry. And finally, she'll blame you. Don't react. Just keep throwing the evidence in her face. That's what the lawyer had warned him, and Carter executed the plan like a sniper. Things aren't the way they look, Audrey repeated, her voice shaking. He humiliated me. Carter, he gave me a cheap, second-hand gift after I threw a hugely expensive party. It hurt me so much. He felt... You hit him. Carter cut her off, his voice flat as a board. In front of 200 witnesses, that is physical assault, punishable by law. He embarrassed me in front of my friends. He saved up for 6 months on his pension to buy you an authentic Cartier watch. Carter didn't raise his voice, but every word was a whip crack. And you told him it was useless garbage in front of all of Beverly Hills. And then you hit him so hard you knocked him to the floor and sliced his hand open on broken glass. Audrey's voice jumped an octave, bordering on hysteria. I didn't mean to hurt him. I swear. Yes, you did, Carter stated. He swiped his finger across the iPad screen. The Coinbase statements filled the glass. 180美元 000 Luna Classic Mai ikibinirmiki Total loss. Audrey's face drained of blood. She turned white as paper. How do you have that? Why? I hired private investigators 4 months ago. Carter shot back, right after $25. 000 vanished from our account for a phantom charity. That was an investment I was trying to multiply the money. That was gambling in a virtual casino with money you stole from our savings behind my back. Carter turned the iPad so she could see it clearly. You hid this bankruptcy from me for 2 years. Audrey swiped the screen herself. The credit card statements appeared like accusing ghosts. 75 grand in credit card debt. Carter spit. 4 cards I had absolutely no idea about. Sent to a P.O. box. How the hell could you? Audrey's chin trembled. I was going to tell you. Carter, I swear. As soon as what he interrupted. Relentless. As soon as you drained your father's retirement fund to pay off your debts, the screen changed. The conservatorship documents glared in the light of the private room. You swore to your father that signing this was just in case. This is a legal document that handed you absolute control of his money, his house, and his life. Audrey got defensive, like a cornered cat. He's my dad. I was just trying to help him. He's not right in the head anymore. He is in perfect mental condition. Carter fired back. I took him to Cedars Sinai. They ran cognitive tests. He's in the 98th percentile for his age. He's sharper than you and me combined. Audrey blinked, stunned. But the doctor told me. Dr. Patty Evans, your college roommate from UCLA. Carter gave her no quarter. You paid her $15. 000 to write a fake dementia diagnosis. He pulled up the email chain. Audrey's eyes scanned the screen. And I watched her soul drop to the floor. Her own words stared back at her through the glass, demanding the diagnosis, cashing in the favor from the pharmacology exam, offering the 15 grand in cash. She committed medical fraud for money. Carter said, tasting the venom, because you extorted her with a cheating scandal from 15 years ago. He showed the wire transfer receipt. 15 美元. Ling ling ling. July 2nd. To her husband's account. By the way, Dr. Evans' medical license was suspended yesterday morning. She is already cooperating with the DA. She's going to testify against you to save her own skin. Audrey opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. She looked like a fish out of water. Carter swiped his finger again. WhatsApp screenshots. You contacted Lawrence's brother. You lied to Henry that Lawrence was deteriorating, that he left the stove on, that he almost burned the house down. Pure, damn lies. You were building a case. You needed a family member to back the conservatorship petition in front of the judge. You manipulated his own brother into supporting a fraud based on your invention. Audrey started shaking her head frantically. And then Carter's voice dropped to a tomb-like depth. You convinced Lawrence to put you on his bank account. And you stole $40. 000 from him in 8 weeks. He showed the bank withdrawals. And when the poor old man noticed, you told him Times. Times had spent it on fixing the roof. A roof that was never fixed. You made him believe he was going crazy. Carter pulled up the text messages with her friend Chloe. The laughing emoji. The mocking tone. Audrey read her own words about how her dad had swallowed the story. And how she was playing the long game. You gaslit your own father. You drove him crazy on purpose. He spent 4 months writing everything down in a blue notebook because he was terrified he had Alzheimer's. Audrey's eyes filled with tears. These were real now. Carter. I didn't want him to suffer. Course you did, Carter exploded, losing his cool for just a second. You wanted him scared. Docile. Cornered. So he would be easy to rob. Carter delivered the final blow. He swiped the screen one last time. The corporate expense reports. And while you were robbing your father, you were robbing the company that pays your salary. Almost $50. 0 inches fake corporate expenses in a year and a half. He scrolled through the list. Spas billed as client lunches. Vacations billed as marketing conventions. Designer bags expensed as office supplies. The auditors at your company are already filing criminal charges, and since they operate nationally, the feds have been notified for wire fraud. Audrey was crying openly now. Black mascara ran down her perfect cheeks, staining her face with darkness. Carter, please, she begged, her words slurring, and then she did exactly what Eleanor had predicted. She cycled through the stages of a narcissist's grief in record time. Denial. She tried to deflect blame. She cried rivers. She blamed him for traveling so much and leaving her alone. And finally, she fell into pure desperation. We can fix this, baby, she whimpered, reaching out her hands. Let's go to therapy. To a psychiatrist. I'll pay all the money back. I swear. I'll work double and pay it back. It's too late. Audrey, Carter said. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out the manila envelope. He slid it across the polished table until it bumped into her hands. I filed for divorce Monday morning. Those are your copies. Audrey grabbed the envelope, her hands shaking hideously. What? No, Carter. Please. You can't do this to me. Your criminal frauds void the mediation clause in our prenup. Carter dictated. Cold as ice. I keep the house in Beverly Hills. The cars. All joint accounts. You're out on the street with the clothes on your back. Zero a limone. Audrey lunged across the table and grabbed his hand desperately. Please, I'll do whatever you want. We can get past this. Carter yanked his hand away in disgust. We can't get past a multi-million-dollar fraud. We can't get past you abusing an elderly man. We can't get past you systematically destroying the only person in your life who loved you unconditionally. He pulled a second envelope from the briefcase. Marcus Cole gave me this. It's a copy of the criminal complaint filed yesterday with the district attorney. He read the charges out loud. Without mercy. Elder financial abuse. Financière exploitation. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Corporate embezzlement. And physical assault for the slap at the party. The LAPD has a warrant out for your arrest. And you are going to be in cuffs in less than 72 hours. Audrey's voice broke into a high-pitched, hysterical scream. You're going to put me in jail. I'm your wife. Carter stood up slowly, buttoned his tailored suit jacket, and looked down at her. His voice was that of a judge handing down a sentence. You were my wife. Now you're just a monster I used to know. He turned around and walked toward the glass door. Carter, she screamed. A howl of a wounded animal. He didn't look back. He opened the door, stepped out into the carpeted hallway, and let the door swing shut heavily behind him. Audrey was left completely alone in the private room. The documents of her hell were scattered all over the table. Her white dress was wrinkled. Her face, stained with black mascara, looked like a melted carnival mask. She stared at the iPad. Its screen now dark. She looked at the divorce papers, and very slowly, as if her bones weighed a ton, she slumped into her chair and buried her face in her hands. From my table in the corner, 30 feet away, I had watched the entire massacre through the glass. I hadn't heard a single word. But the fall of her empire was written in her body language. I thought that seeing her destroyed would make me feel rage, or satisfaction, or a sense of fulfilled vengeance. But the only thing I felt was a massive emptiness, a hollow, cold grief for a daughter that, I realized now, had never really existed. I saw Carter walk through the main dining room toward the exit. He saw me in my dark corner and stopped. He didn't sit down. He just stood by my table and said a single phrase, "It's over." And I nodded, because yes, the theater had completely collapsed. The LAPD arrived at Audrey's corporate offices on Thursday. Exactly at 1:00 a.m. I wasn't there to see it. I was on the hotel terrace, drinking coffee with Carter, when Detective Cole called us and said, "The operation is a go." Carter put the phone on speaker so we could hear Marcus narrate live what he was seeing from the sidewalk across the street. Looking through his camera lens, Audrey was being arrested in front of every single person she had spent her life trying to impress. The cynic actually went to work. The morning after, her husband threw divorce papers and proof of her crimes in her face. She got up, put on an impeccable tailored suit, did her makeup, and drove to her glass-walled office as if it were any normal Thursday, believing, in her narcissistic delusion, that she could still control the fire. Marcus told us later that she was sitting at her desk, typing emails. When the agents walked in, Marcus's voice came through the speaker, clinical and professional. "They're entering the corporate building. 2 LAPD detectives and 1 federal agent for the wire fraud." I heard the sound of honking cars on the street, rustle of Marcus's clothes as he moved. I'm crossing the main lobby, going up the glass elevator, 3rd floor. I'm approaching her area. It's all glass. I can see her perfectly. She's at her desk. She hasn't seen them yet. There was a pause that squeezed my chest. The agents just walked into her department. She looks up. She just turned white as a sheet. Another pause. This one longer, heavier. The lead detective is talking to her. I can't hear what he's saying. But she just stood up abruptly. She's shaking her head. Looks like she's begging them. "Not here. Please." I squeezed my coffee mug until my fingers hurt. The detective doesn't give a damn. He's pulling out the cuffs. I felt like I couldn't get any air. She's in cuffs. They're reading her rights. Marcus's voice didn't waver. The corporate employees are stopping work. Everyone is looking. She sees them watching her. She just started crying. I closed my eyes tight. They're walking her out, down the main hallway. It's all glass walls. Easily 200 people watching the show. 200 people. The exact same damn number of guests who watched her slap me across the face 5 days ago. She's trying to keep her head up, but she's crumbling. They're at the elevator, lobby, heading outside. They're putting her in the cruiser. Silence on the line. Then, Marcus delivered the verdict. Show's over. They're taking her to Century Regional Detention Facility to process her. I set the mug on the table. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. Carter looked at me, studying my face. "Are you okay?" "Lawrence," he asked. I didn't know how to answer. "That's my daughter, in that police cruiser, in handcuffs." I said, my throat tight. "That is the criminal who tried to destroy your life and steal your very name." Carter replied, his voice soft but firm. I nodded slowly. Both things are true. 20 minutes later, Eleanor called with the official report. 6 formal charges. Elder financial abuse under the California Penal Code. Felony. Fraud and illicit machinations. Felony. Grand theft for the $40. 000 from my account. Felony. Corporate embezzlement. Felony. Conspiracy with Dr. Evans to falsify medical records. Felony. And physical assault. Battery for the slap at the party. If the judge convicts her on all counts. Eleanor said without an ounce of pity, "We are looking at 8 to 12 years behind bars." The emergency bail hearing was held at 1:00 p.m. The judge didn't mess around. The DA laid out the case like a butcher, cutting meat. He argued that Audrey was an extreme flight risk. Her billionaire husband had frozen her assets and filed for divorce. She had no financial roots tying her to the city anymore. And the charges were devastating. Overwhelming video evidence, bank documents, and accomplice confession. Audrey's public defender tried to defend her. Your Honor, Mrs. Sterling has no prior criminal record. She is not a flight risk. She has a life established in this city. The judge cut him off cold. The defendant is accused of systematically defrauding her elderly father, conspiring with a doctor to falsify psychiatric diagnoses, embezzling from the company that pays her, and physically assaulting her own father in front of 200 witnesses. This court finds clear and convincing evidence of danger to the victim and a high risk of flight given her financial ruin. Bail was set at $500. Ling, ling, ling. Audrey had no way to pay it. Carter had locked down every last cent. She couldn't scrape together 10 grand, let alone $500,000. The judge ordered her remanded into custody, and they sent her straight back to the holding cells at Linwood. By noon, the gossip had exploded in the media. The Los Angeles Times ran the story on the front page of the Metro section. Times Beverly Hills Tech VP arrested in elaborate fraud and elder abuse plot. The article dropped her full name, hair, age, her title, and the blacklist of her crimes. The tech company released a press statement in under an hour. We are shocked and appalled by these events. The employment relationship with Mrs. Sterling has been terminated effective immediately. We are cooperating fully with federal authorities. By 5:00 p.m., KTLA 5 and Fox 11 had the story in heavy rotation. I was sitting on the sofa in the suite when the news report aired. The anchor's voice had that sensationalist but professional tone they use for rich people tragedies. A Beverly Hills socialite was arrested today on severe charges of elder financial abuse. Audrey's mugshot filled the 60-inch screen. Her hair was a bird's nest. Her makeup, a runny disaster. Her eyes bloodshot and brutally swollen from crying. She was wearing the gray jail uniform. I stared at the television like I was hypnotized. That was my little girl. Carter sat down next to me on the couch. How do you feel? I don't know. I confessed. I thought I was going to feel something strong. Relief. Rage. I don't know. Something. But I just feel tired. Deeply tired. That's normal. Carter told me. Is it normal to see your own daughter getting arrested on the 5 o'clock news? I replied with a sad smile. There is nothing normal about this. So, that same night, Audrey slept in a holding cell at the Linwood Women's Jail. She shared the concrete box with 3 other inmates. One of them, a rough woman who was in for a DUI crash, asked her why she was locked up. Audrey didn't answer at first. I saw you on the TV in intake. The woman told her, chewing gum. You're the rich girl who beat the crap out of her old dad. I didn't beat. Audrey started to stutter, then went quiet. TV says you slapped the hell out of him and stole his cash in front of 200 people. Shame on you. Audrey rolled over on the thin mattress, turning her back to her, and for the first time, I imagined the reality of the hell she had walked into was finally seeping into her bones. This was real. It was happening. And there was no way to use her VP charm to talk her way out of it. Later that night, Carter and I went out to the terrace under the California stars. The wind blew cold, scrubbing the city clean. Do you think she finally understands? I asked him. What she did, I don't know. Carter Sahil, resting his arms on the glass railing. Maybe. Or maybe she's still in there scheming. trying to figure out how to spin a sob story to the judge to get out of this. Can she do that? No. Carter said with finality. Eleanor built a steel vault. The best she can hope for is a plea deal if she pleads guilty to everything. And how much time would that be? About 2 years. Maybe 3. If the judge plays hardball, or if she takes it to trial and fights it, she gets the full 12. I stayed quiet for a long time, listening to the wind. She's 35. Carter. She'll be pushing 40 by the time she steps foot on the street again. She made her own choices. Lawrence, I know. I murmured. I know. It's just... I can't stop thinking about the little girl I raised, and I ask myself exactly when she turned into this monster. Maybe she always had that darkness inside her. Carter told me with a softness that ached. You just closed your eyes because you didn't want to see it. Maybe. That night, I dreamed of Audrey.